There are moments in politics when something small happens and almost no one notices at first. No headlines, no public attention, no urgency. But beneath that silence, something powerful begins to move. This is one of those moments because recently, President Ruto held a meeting with Akorino leaders quietly, carefully, and for a while, almost invisibly, until word started spreading. Before we go further, take a second to subscribe, because stories like these don't end where most people think they do. And what you're about to hear may change how you see everything that follows. Now listen closely. The Akorino community is not just a religious identity. It is a network, a structure, a voice that carries weight across regions that matter deeply in national politics.
And historically, engagement with such groups is rarely casual, it is intentional. So when a meeting like this happens without broad visibility, it raises a simple but important question. Why was it so quiet? Because in politics, silence is rarely accidental. Sometimes it is strategic. Now here's where things begin to shift. Because as details of the meeting began to surface, so did reactions. And one reaction stood out more than the rest. Gachagua. Not because of what was officially said, but because of how it was said. The tone, the timing, the underlying message. It suggested something deeper, something unsettled. And in politics, tone can reveal more than words. So what exactly changed? To understand that, you have to look beyond the meeting itself. You have to look at what it represents. Direct engagement, independent alignment, a shift away from traditional channels of influence. And that shift can be uncomfortable, especially for those who have long operated within those channels. Because when structures begin to change, so does control. And when control shifts, so does the balance of power. Now think about the timing. This is not happening in isolation. This is happening at a moment when future ambitions are quietly taking shape, when alliances are no longer fixed, when every interaction is viewed through the lens of what comes next. And what comes next is 2027. So naturally, people are connecting the dots. Was this meeting about unity, or was it about positioning? Because if it is about positioning, then it carries far greater weight than it first appeared. And that possibility is what is fueling the conversation.
Because once influence begins to move, it rarely moves back. So where does this leave us? At the beginning of a story, not the end. A story that is still unfolding. A story where the quietest moments may turn out to be the most important. Stay with us, because the next chapter of this story may reveal just how far this shift is going. Script 2, version 3. Behind closed doors, the State House conversation that's raising eyebrows. Sometimes, what is not shown matters more than what is. Because in the world of politics, visibility is often controlled, carefully managed, deliberately shaped. And when something happens outside that visibility, it creates a different kind of attention. The kind driven by questions. And right now, there are many questions. Before we go deeper,
Subscribe to the channel because we follow the details others overlook. And this story is built on details that don't immediately stand out. Let's explore. A meeting took place inside State House. It involved Akorino leaders, but beyond that, very little was publicly explained. No detailed breakdown, no extended coverage, just a quiet confirmation. And that quiet confirmation has become the center of a discussion. Because when information is limited, interpretation expands. Some see this as a routine engagement, a normal interaction between leadership and community figures. But others see something more layered. They see timing, they see positioning, they see intent. Because engagements like this rarely happen without purpose. Now consider this. Religious communities influence perception. They guide conversations. There they shape trust. And trust is one of the most valuable assets in politics. So when leadership engages at that level, it is often about more than the present. It is about the future. And that brings us to the central question. What future is being prepared here? Because if this meeting was part of a broader strategy, then it is only one piece of a much larger picture. A picture that is not yet fully visible, but slowly becoming clearer. Some analysts suggest that this could signal a shift toward more direct engagement, a move away from intermediaries, a new way of building influence. If that is the case, then it represents a change in approach. And changes in approach often lead to unexpected outcomes because they disrupt existing dynamics, they challenge established roles, and they create new possibilities. Which is why this moment matters, not because of what has been confirmed, but because of what could follow. Because whatever was discussed behind those doors does not stay there forever. Eventually, it shows itself in actions, in decisions, in direction. So now, attention turns to what comes next, because that is where the real story will begin to reveal itself. Stay with us, because the next development may bring answers or even bigger questions. Script 3, version 3. A subtle shift or a serious divide. Reading the signals between Ruto and Gachagua. Not all political changes are loud. Some begin quietly, almost invisibly, in gestures, in timing, in reactions that seem small but carry deeper meaning. And right now, those signals are starting to appear. Before we continue, subscribe now, because this situation is evolving and the smallest detail could change the entire narrative. Let's take a closer look. At the center of this conversation is a single meeting, an engagement with Akorino leaders. On its own, it might seem straightforward, but context changes everything, because since that meeting, there has been a noticeable shift, not in official announcements, but in tone, in positioning, in the way different voices are responding. And those shifts are what people are paying attention to, because in politics, alignment is everything. When alignment is strong, progress is predictable. But when alignment begins to loosen, uncertainty follows. Now, the question being asked is simple. Are we seeing early signs of a divide, or is this just a temporary moment of tension? Because the difference between those two possibilities is significant. A temporary tension can be resolved. A deeper divide can reshape everything, especially in a region like Mount Kenya, a region that has historically played a decisive role in national direction. If unity in that region weakens, the impact will not stay local. It will extend outward into national politics, into future strategies, into the path toward 2027. And that is why this moment matters, because even small shifts can lead to major outcomes. Some observers believe this is simply part of normal political evolution, a moment that will pass. But others believe it could be something more, the beginning of a realignment, a redefinition of influence, a change in how power is organized and expressed. And if that is true, then we are witnessing the early stages of something much larger. So what should we watch next? Not just statements, not just headlines, but patterns, because patterns reveal direction, and direction reveals intent. For now, the situation remains fluid, still developing, still uncertain. But one thing is clear, something has shifted, and whatever that shift becomes will shape what comes next. Stay with us, because this story is still unfolding, one step at a time.